On Christmas morning, a hell angel found a little boy in his garage. His story nearly broke him on Christmas morning. The roar of Jake Rourke's motorcycle echoed against the frozen stillness of the small Colorado town, a sound that usually made people shut their blinds and look away. But this time, something else waited for him, something that would hit him harder than the engine's vibration in his chest. When he opened the garage door of his isolated cabin, expecting only the familiar scent of oil and metal, he froze. Curled up between toolboxes and spare tires was a little boy, no older than 7, shivering so violently the wrench beside him rattled on the concrete. That moment, raw, sharp, and unexpected, cut through Jake's hardened exterior like nothing had in years. If you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support truly keeps stories like this alive. Jake had spent most of his life running with the Hell Angels, earning scars, respect, and a reputation that followed him like a storm cloud. He wasn't the type of man to be caught off guard, much less by a child hiding in his garage. But as the boy lifted his head, revealing tear-streaked cheeks and eyes wide with terror, something dormant in Jake stirred. He recognized that look, the same one he'd worn the night he'd fled his father's drunken fury at 10 years old. He had sworn long ago never to feel anything again. Yet this small stranger had cracked open memories he buried beneath anger, fists, and miles of steel and asphalt. The morning sun crept in through the slats of the garage door, illuminating the bruises on the boy's arms and the dirt smeared across his thin pajamas. Jake's instinct told him to walk away. Kids weren't his thing, feelings weren't his thing, and Christmas, well, he hadn't celebrated that since prison. But the boy's trembling grew worse in the icy air, and Jake found himself kneeling slowly, unsure of why. His hands were shaking too. In that fragile silence, he sensed something bigger than both of them pressing in, urging him to make a choice he wasn't ready for. Taking the boy inside felt like stepping into someone else's life. Jake's cabin was cold, cluttered, and unforgiving, much like him. Yet when he wrapped the kid in a blanket and watched the panic in his eyes soften just a little, he felt a weight settle on his chest, a strange new responsibility he didn't ask for but couldn't shrug off. The boy barely spoke, only offered short, broken answers that revealed fragments of a truth Jake already feared. He had run from someone who was supposed to protect him, someone who didn't deserve him, someone who might come looking. Jake knew that pain, knew it too well. He recognized the flinches, the defensive posture, the way the kid scanned the room for exits. This boy had lived in fear long before he crawled into Jake's garage, and something about that lit a fire in the man who had always been better at destruction than saving. Throughout the day, Jake felt his own past scraping against the surface of his mind, memories he had built walls around years ago. The Christmases spent hiding in neighbors' yards until sunrise, the sting of his father's belt, the weight of being unwanted. He had survived, but survival had cost him pieces of himself he never got back. Looking at the boy, Evan, as he eventually whispered, it struck Jake how easily this child could become a mirror of who he once was if no one stepped in. As the hours passed, the snow thickened outside, cloaking the world in a heavy white silence. Jake cooked the kid a small meal, though his hands fumbled clumsily through every step. Evan watched him with cautious eyes, but there was a shift, subtle, fragile. Trust wasn't there yet, but the fear was loosening its grip. Jake didn't know what to do with that. It scared him more than any bar fight or rival gang ever had. As night approached, Jake sat on the old couch, the boy curled under blankets beside the space heater. The tree outside glowed faintly from a neighboring cabin, reminding Jake of something he'd forgotten, the quiet ache of wishing for one moment of warmth, of someone choosing him. And now, here was this child, alone, cold, with nowhere else to go. Jake felt something inside him relent. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a monster. He felt needed. The stillness broke when headlights swept across the snow outside. A truck stopped at the end of the driveway, engine idling like a growling animal. Evan jolted upright, eyes wide with terror. Jake rose slowly, muscles tense, instincts sharpening. When a man stepped out, shouting the boy's name with slurred aggression, Jake's blood ran cold. He knew that tone. He had lived under it, and he would not let it take this child back. What followed wasn't a dramatic brawl, no fists or fury, just a firm, unflinching stance. Jake stepped onto the porch, towering like a shadow the man couldn't threaten. Something in Jake's presence, years of violence, pain, and the iron determination that radiated off him, made the man hesitate. Words were exchanged, sharp, cold, final. The man retreated, stumbling back to his truck, the unspoken promise in Jake's stare making it clear he would never allow the boy near that nightmare again. When the taillights disappeared into the storm, Jake returned inside, where Evan stood clutching the blanket like a lifeline. In that moment, Jake realized the truth. Saving this boy wasn't just about protecting him. It was about saving the version of himself he thought was gone forever. Something inside him shifted, softened, healed. The next morning, Jake made the hardest and most important choice of his life. He contacted social services, not the cruel, careless kind he remembered, but a trusted friend who owed him a favor, someone who worked to place kids in homes that actually cared. For the first time, Jake fought not with fists, but with heart, making sure Evan would be safe, cared for, and finally free of fear. But before the boy left the cabin, he did something Jake would never forget. He reached out and hugged him. A quiet, trembling hug that carried more gratitude, hope, and love than any words ever could. Jake, the hell angel who had built his life around walls, felt those walls crumble. If this story moved you, even a little, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your support brings more powerful stories to life. Before the ending, here's a special request. Comment below what part touched your heart the most. Jake watched the car drive away with a bittersweet ache in his chest. The cabin felt emptier, but he felt lighter too, because on that Christmas morning, he didn't just find a little boy in his garage. He found the last missing piece of himself, the part that still believed in goodness, in redemption, in second chances, and in that discovery, he realized he had finally become something more than the life he came from. He had become someone capable of saving another soul. And in doing so, he saved his own.